Some stories don't begin with forever or even a kiss. They begin with something lighter, a dare, a costume, a night when the air smells like sugar and the streets glow orange. Welcome to Men Being Too Intimate, an audio story series exploring what happens when two men blur the emotional lines. Between logic and laughter, between rivalry and something quieter. 8 episodes, 8 MBTI pairings, 8 moments where chemistry hides in plain sight. In today's story, we meet an ENTP. Loud, daring, quick to make a game of anything, and an INTP, reserved, precise. The kind of man who resists until he doesn't. It's Halloween in Chicago. One insists on a couple's costume. The other argues every detail. But when the night turns into a bet, who can stay in character longer? It stops being about candy or costumes, or even the party. It becomes something else. This is episode 2, the costume bet. The apartment isn't much, a 2-bedroom walk-up in Lakeview, just north of Belmont. The kind of place where the windows rattle in the wind off Lake Michigan, and the hardwood floors creak even when no one's moving. It's early October, and Chicago is already flirting with cold. From the couch, Ethan scrolls his phone with restless energy. Ian sits in the armchair across the room, laptop balanced on his knee, half watching a muted hockey game on TV. They've been roommates for 2 years now, friends even longer. Friends who cook together out of convenience, who argue about the thermostat, who somehow always end up in the same room even when they swore they needed space. Tonight, the talk is about Halloween. Ethan throws it out first. Should we decorate? Like it's nothing. But he's already picturing orange lights in the window, plastic skeletons on the fire escape. Ian doesn't even look up. Why? We don't get trick-or-treaters on the 3rd floor. Vibe check, Ethan counters. Festive, seasonal. Waste of money, Ian replies, scrolling. The next volley, candy. Ethan insists they need it. Ian says no one comes here. Ethan claims he will come here every night looking for sugar. Ian just raises a brow. You live here. I'll knock on your room for trick or treat. Then it's pumpkins. Who's buying them? Who's carrying them up 3 flights of stairs? Ethan nominates Ian. Ian vetoes immediately. The bickering isn't mean, but it's endless. And under it, something else stirs. The kind of charge that makes silence feel heavier than noise. Eventually, the debate swerves toward costumes. Ethan rattles off duos like it's a brainstorm session. Superheroes, vampires, ironic meme fits. Ian shoots each one down. Overdone. So pre-pandemic. Already cringe. Ethan groans, flopping back on the couch. Fine, what's your idea then? Ian doesn't have one. He just mutters, let's take a break, and flicks over to YouTube. The algorithm offers up a grainy black and white clip. Frankenstein, lumbering across the screen, arms stiff and awkward. The sound crackles through old speakers. The apartment smells faintly of old wood and microwaved ramen. Outside, the wind off the lake rattles the windows, but inside, the warmth is louder. 2 roommates circling each other with words. That's it, Ethan says, grinning. We go as Frankenstein and the scientist. Ian raises a brow, unimpressed. Obvious. Done a million times. Classic, Ethan corrects. Timeless. And just like that, the spark ignites again, not anger, but that familiar charge between them. Ethan leans forward, quick, insistent. Ian doesn't flinch, doesn't give ground. Who gets to be the scientist? Who gets stuck as the monster? Another round begins. Ethan claims the mastermind role with a smirk. Ian refuses, declaring he's the only one with the brains for it. The bickering turns kinetic. A shove. A laugh. And before Ian can retreat to safety, Ethan pounces. Suddenly, they're tangled on the couch cushions, limbs caught, laughter spilling too loud for the hour. Ian resists with logic, complaining about angles, leverage, this isn't fair. Ethan answers with momentum. In a final push, Ethan pins him, breathless, grinning from above. I'm the brain, he declares, triumphant. You're the grumpy monster. For a second, neither moves. The laptop hums. The glow from the black and white film paints their faces in flickering light. It's still a joke. Still framed as play. But the weight of Ethan leaning over Ian lingers too long to be casual. And in that pause, just long enough to notice, the line between roommates and something else blurs. Weekends in Lakeview always feel a little louder. Clark Street hums with strollers and dogs, the smell of coffee drifting out of corner shops, paper bats taped to doors that won't stay flat. The city carries the season in small ways, but for Ethan and Ian, the errand itself is the story. Ethan has been ready since breakfast, sneakers tapping, jacket already on, while Ian insists on washing 2 bowls because coming home to a clean kitchen is not optional. They step out into the chill, Ethan pointing at every decoration like a tour guide, Ian calling each one a hazard until the store finally swallows them. Inside, the air is sharp with rubber and sugar, fluorescence buzzing overhead. A plastic witch cackles every time someone brushes her sensor, which Ethan does twice on purpose. Candy is first. Ethan doesn't shop. He builds a tower. Peanut butter cups, sour worms, lollipops bright as hazard signs. He cradles them like treasure. Ian follows behind, wordless at first, removing 1 bag at a time with the precision of a man undoing a mistake. It takes Ethan a moment to notice. By the 3rd subtraction, he stops dead in the aisle. "Excuse me," he hisses, affronted. "This is sabotage." "It's survival," Ian replies, eyes on the ingredients list of something no one has ever read. "If you add 1 more, I'm skipping the party and handing these out on the porch." The words land like a threat, but feel like a promise. Ethan freezes, wounded. Then, with exaggerated solemnity, he replaces a bag of sour worms. He keeps the peanut butter cups. Fine. But history will remember this betrayal. They move on, decorations next. Ethan runs commentary as if hosting a tour. Net lights, ambient. A skeleton in a sombrero, festive internationalism. A fog machine with a skull stapled to the box, elevated atmosphere. Ian vetoes each without slowing. "Orange and black," Ian adds finally, almost as a ruling, "are objectively the worst color pairing in existence. They make furniture look ill." "So 1 pumpkin, that's it?" Ethan cries, hands raised like a martyr. "1," Ian says, walking. "Carved. Outside the door." "2," Ethan counters instantly. Symmetry. A long pause. Then the sigh of resignation. "Fine. 2. But you carved them." Ethan locks an arm around his shoulders, triumphant. "At least bake me a pie," he sings, voice too close to Ian's ear. Ian doesn't shrug him off. "Yes," he says flat. "But we're not buying pre-made crust." The tension lingers, warm, even as they reach the last gauntlet, costumes. The racks are forests of polyester, wigs dangling like weeds, masks grinning half-melted under fluorescent light. Ethan rushes in, headfirst, parading options with mock seriousness. A cape, a pirate hat, a sequined vest. "No," Ian says again and again. "I said no," when a cape swirls too close. "That one is a hate crime against fabric." When Ethan holds up the vest like treasure, their voices climb the aisle like a script they've rehearsed 100 times. 2 teenagers peek from behind devil horns. A woman in a witch hat hides a smile. Finally, Ethan brandishes a lab coat. Couple costume. Efficient branding. "We are not a brand," Ian deadpans. "We're 2 men in an apartment who will regret photos of ourselves later." "Guys," a clerk has materialized, arms crossed, badge askew. "Keep it down, please." They freeze. Silence stretches. Then Ethan laughs too loud and Ian, against his own instincts, joins in. The clerk shakes her head and wanders off. The laughter lingers, thins into something warmer. Ethan leans closer, his grin still crooked. "We're already the show," he says, voice lower now. Ian looks at him as if recalibrating a measurement. His mouth doesn't move, but the edges shift. "Then let's not get canceled for volume." Which is Ian for "I'm not leaving yet." And when Ian thinks the fight is over, Ethan proves otherwise. He circles back to the racks, flipping carefully through the clothes. Lab coats, patched jackets, torn pants. For once, his chaos is deliberate, precise. Ian checks his watch, impatient. "We already decided. Frankenstein and the scientist, just pick." "Decided," Ethan says, "but not perfected." He studies stitches, tilts fabric in the light, frowns until he finally nods. A set chosen. They head toward the counter, but halfway there Ethan stops short. The makeup section glows with rows of paint sticks and cheap palettes. He crouches, scanning until he finds it. A Wicked Witch makeup kit. perfect green tucked inside. He grins, holding it up like a trophy. This will do. Green is the new black. Ian mutters, "You're impossible." Then only winks, tossing the kit onto the pile. "You'll thank me later." By the day of Halloween, the pumpkins on the landing had already hardened into grin-mouthed guardians. Ethan's handiwork. Clean cuts, sharp teeth, eyes just mischievous enough to look alive. Inside, the apartment smelled of spice and sugar. Ian moved with steady precision in the kitchen, pulling a pie from the oven like it was an exam he'd studied for. Golden crust, steam curling upward. He slid it onto the counter with quiet satisfaction. Ethan was already dressed or half-dressed. The lab coat swished as he hovered, sleeves rolled up, black gloves tucked in his pocket. He circled the kitchen like a restless crow, eyes darting between the pie and Ian's face. "Best roommate ever," he declared, snatching a fork and cutting in before the pie had even settled. Ian muttered something about cooling times, but Ethan only grinned, talking around the bite. "Unbelievable. You're wasted in accounting. This is Michelin star." Ian tried not to look pleased, which only made him look more so. But Ethan's focus shifted fast, as it always did. Pie abandoned, he held up a brush like a wand. "Now, my creation awaits." Ian gave him a flat look. "I'm not your creation. You are tonight." Ethan tapped the brush against his palm, impatient, almost giddy. Ian disappeared into his room with the bundle of thrifted clothes. Pants sagging, shirt torn, buttons mismatched. When he re-emerged, the transformation was half complete, ridiculous, shapeless, a parody of himself. Ethan nearly jumped to his feet. "My prodigy," he exclaimed, arms wide, as if presenting him to an invisible crowd. "Born of scraps!" "Stitched together by genius," Ian sighed, but didn't move when Ethan swooped closer. The first touch of paint was cold, dragging green across his cheek. Their eyes met, held. The brush hovered for a beat too long before moving again. Silence hummed under the sound of the fridge, under Ethan's two bright jokes. "Hold still," he murmured, brushing along Ian's jaw, over his temple, down the curve of his neck. Each stroke required closeness. Each closeness lingered. When the brush traced lower, across his collarbone, Ian flinched. Just slightly. Enough to be noticed. Ethan laughed too quickly, covering it with bravado. "What, am I making you nervous?" The words landed heavier than he meant. His grin faltered, but he didn't take them back. Didn't apologize. He just kept painting, quieter now, each stroke slower. Ian didn't answer. But something shifted. His chest rose sharper. His body stayed still but not relaxed. Ethan leaned in to paint the curve of Ian's shoulder. Brush steady, grin tilted. That's when he noticed the shift. His gaze dipped lower, caught it before he could stop himself. "You getting hard on me?" he blurted, half a joke, half too honest. Ian froze, eyes darting down, as if he could will his body into stillness. He shifted his stance, hands lowered, trying to hide what was already obvious. Ethan's first instinct was regret, but instead he threw his arms wide, brush held high like a conductor's baton. "Of course! My creation is a man," he announced in a mad scientist flourish, voice loud enough to rattle the cupboards. "It's alive! It's powerful! It's rock hard! It works!" Ian groaned, dragging a hand down his painted face, muttering, "You're impossible." But there was the faintest pull at the corner of his mouth, the ghost of a smile he didn't want to give away. The tension didn't vanish. Not really. It only shifted, tucked into laughter that wasn't quite safe. Ethan returned to his work quieter now, but every brush stroke felt different. Every line between joke and truth thinner than before. The party is already chaos when they arrive. A loft near Wrigleyville, pulsing with bass, the air thick with beer and fog machine smoke. Every corner is a collage of costumes. Angels with glittered wings, vampires dripping red syrup, superheroes clinking cans. No one is out of character. Ethan thrives in it instantly. His lab coat flares with every spin, his gloves snapping in dramatic gestures. He plays the part of mad scientist to the hilt, laughing too loud, pulling people into photographs, proclaiming Ian his creation to anyone who'll listen. But it's Ian who stands out. His green skin catches the light in a way that makes him look more statue than joke. The ripped clothes hang just enough to suggest not hide. The deadpan he carries so naturally becomes a performance in itself, magnetic without effort. People notice. They laugh at his one-liners, lean in too close, and Ian, awkward but steady, doesn't retreat. At first, they move together. Ethan dragging him onto the makeshift dance floor, their shoulders brushing, their rhythm clumsy but shared. Drinks appear, disappear, refill themselves. The heat of the room grows, and somewhere in the middle of it all, they get separated. Ethan disappears into a knot of old friends, hugging, dancing, throwing his arm over shoulders with that reckless charm that makes him impossible to lose in a crowd. He thrives on the chaos, fueled by every laugh, every drink passed into his hand. Ian, meanwhile, drifts. He isn't searching for attention, but it finds him. Someone tall, sharp grin, costume indistinct in the haze, pulls him aside with a hand on his arm. Starts asking questions. Starts leaning closer. So who's the scientist? The stranger asks, nodding at Ethan across the room. Ian shrugs. Just a roommate. The words aren't cold. They're simple, flat, as if stating a fact. But in the noise, in the wrong ears, they sound like permission. Because one of Ethan's friends hears them, half hidden behind a mask, drink in hand, catching the exchange like gossip in motion. The friend peels away from the crowd and crosses the room to where Ethan is laughing mid-story. Tap him on the shoulder, lean in. Hey, he says, low but pointed. Your monster just gave someone the green light. The words slide through Ethan like a switch. His grin freezes, then falters. The music doesn't dim, but suddenly it feels too loud. His glass tilts in his hand, forgotten. His eyes find Ian across the room, cornered, smiling faintly. Someone else leaning closer than Ethan wants to see. And just like that, jealousy blooms. Ethan can't stop watching. The way the stranger leans in too close. The way his hand brushes Ian's sleeve, then stays there. The way Ian goes still, not resisting, not inviting, just frozen in that quiet way of his. Something sour twists in Ethan's chest. He lifts his beer, drains it in one pull, the glass clinking too hard on the table. His laugh is gone. His gloves creak as he clenches his hands, then he steps forward. The room tilts a little with each stride, alcohol blurring the edges, but his focus doesn't waver. When he reaches them, the words come out rougher than he planned. He's my creation. And before Ian can react, before the stranger can even blink, Ethan leans in and kisses him. It isn't a soft kiss. It's messy, fierce, tasting of beer and bravado. For a heartbeat, Ian doesn't move. The stranger's hand hovers awkwardly, as if ready to intervene until Ian's arm lifts, palm settling against Ethan's face. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. Enough to make the stranger back off, muttering, disappearing into the crowd. The music keeps pounding. People keep dancing. But the world has narrowed to two. Ian's hand lingers 1 second longer. Then he presses gently, pushing Ethan back. His voice is low, steady, cutting through the haze. You're drunk. Let's go home. Ethan stumbles, his knees giving way as he nearly hits the floor. He laughs once, hollow, scrambling back up. His coat flares, his hair is a mess, and his eyes shine too brightly. Yep, he says, breathless, almost grinning. Definitely drunk. And with that, the night tilts again. Away from the crowd, toward the door, toward the quiet waiting outside. The taxi ride is a blur of neon bending across wet pavement. Ethan leans heavy against the window, laughter thinning into a low hum. Ian keeps a steady arm across his chest, catching him each time the car sways. By the time they reach the 3rd floor, Ethan is half leaning, half hanging on him. At the top of the stairwell, their pumpkins wait by the apartment door, one tall, one round, carved clean with hollow grins. In their stumble, Ethan's shoulder knocks the taller one. It wobbles, tips, and rolls down the hall, bumping against the wall with a dull thud before coming to rest on its side. The round one stays where it was placed, steady by the door. Ian exhales, a long sigh through his nose, but doesn't go after it. His hand never loosens from Ethan's arm. Inside, the apartment smells faintly of spice gone cool. Ian steers Ethan toward the sofa, lowering him with careful patience. Ethan lands in a sprawl of lab coat and laughter, hair mussed, gloves long gone. Ian straightens, ready to step back. But Ethan's hand closes around his wrist, pulling him forward, down, closer. I think... Ethan's voice is rough, soft, but certain. I like you. The words hang in the air, heavier than the night. Then he pulls Ian in and kisses him. It's messy, tasting of beer and urgency. Ian stiffens, one hand braced against the cushion, but Ethan clings harder, refusing to let him slip away. Ian breathes finely, lips barely brushing his. His voice is steady, measured even now. But you're drunk. Ethan only shakes his head, kisses him again, fiercer this time. The sofa shifts under them as their bodies press closer, heat and laughter tangled with silence. The night folds around them, clumsy and real, breaking open into something neither of them can take back. Just outside the door, one round pumpkin still sits upright, steady in its glow, while its taller twin lies tilted against the wall, its grin knocked sideways in the dark. Dawn in Lakeview is quiet. The streets below are muted, delivery trucks idling at corners, a stray siren muffled by distance. On the sofa, two bodies lie tangled. Ethan, shirtless, half-sprawled, one arm draped across Ian's chest. Ian stirs first, the cushions digging into his ribs, the weight of another body pinning him down. For a moment he doesn't move, just listens to Ethan's slow, uneven breathing, the kind that follows a night blurred at the edges. Then carefully he slips free. The room is pale with dawn, coats thrown over chairs, shoes abandoned near the door. Ian pauses, looks at Ethan for a long second. Bare, defenseless, hair messy across his forehead, then pads quietly toward his room. When he returns, washed and changed, Ethan hasn't moved. He's sprawled deeper into the cushions, one leg tangled in the blanket like he lost the fight with it. Ian exhales softly, then heads for the kitchen. The motions are automatic. Chicken simmering in broth, ginger shaved thin, noodles softening in steam. Coffee drips steady into a pot. The smell fills the apartment, warm against the brittle air outside. By the time it's done, Ian carries a bowl back to the sofa. He crouches low, touching Ethan's shoulder. Wake up, he murmurs. Ethan groans, eyes cracking open, face creased. Can't eat, he mumbles, voice thick. But then his gaze lifts, catches the steam curling from the bowl, the set of Ian's jaw, the effort behind it. Slowly, he props himself up, takes the spoon. The first taste is small, the second larger. By the third, he sighs, long, soft, something loosening inside him. He sets the spoon down and looks at Ian. I meant it last night, Ethan says quietly, no laugh behind it this time. I meant every word. I am ready. Are you? The words are bare. For once, not wrapped in performance. Ian doesn't answer right away. He leans in, and Ethan meets him halfway. Their lips brush, then hold, steadier than the night before. When the kiss deepens, Ethan shifts closer. The blanket falls, the space between them disappearing. His body betrays him, urgent, alive, undeniable. Ian pulls back just enough to smirk, breath ghosting against his lips. You getting hard on me? Ethan laughs, half embarrassed, half relieved. And the morning carries forward, heavier and lighter all at once. ENTP and INTP, the spark and the stillness. One restless, reckless, always chasing the next idea. The other quiet, measured, holding back until he can't anymore. Together, they bickered like oxygen. Every fight, another way of staying close. Every argument, another step toward the same truth. What began as jokes, as costumes, as a night too loud to remember, ended with something neither of them could deny. That's what happens when men are too intimate. When the lines blur, when a kiss says more than logic ever could. This was Ethan and Ian, a story of play and resistance, of jealousy and confessions, and the morning after, where even in hangovers, they finally admitted what had always been there. Men being too intimate.